Good evening, and welcome back to another fabulous edition of Moon Over Manifest. I'm Jeff Lazalier. I'm here to introduce this evening's reading. This is the chapter that's entitled Frog Hunting, one of Mrs. Lazalier's favorite amphibians, frogs. And the date on this chapter is June 5th, 1936, and you'll want to turn to page 103. Thank you for joining us. Now, your host, Mrs. Lazalier.
Oh, wow, that's going to be hard to live up to. All right, frog hunting. No, I do not like frogs. I hate frogs. I'm terrified of frogs. It's real. Okay, June 5th, 1936. In bare feet and overalls, I looked out my bedroom window. It had been several days since Miss Sadie had left me hanging with her last story about Jinx and Ned at the county fair, and that day I had the afternoon off. The Liberty Head silver dollar mentioned in Ned's letter had taken its place on the sill next to the Wiggle King fishing lure. So if you remember, she found the Liberty Head silver dollar in the box with the fishing lure. I had to admit it was exciting and mysterious how the diviner could draw a whole story out of these little things. I could see why people would come to visit her. And they did come. I'd been going to Miss Sadie's for a week, and sometimes I'd been there only an hour or two, and she'd call it quits for the day, which was fine by me. She wouldn't say why, but then a visitor would come calling just as I was leaving. The day before, an old woman who'd seemed anxious and fretful had come. She said her mind wasn't what it used to be. This morning, it was a young, pretty woman. I recognized her. It was Betty Lou, the beautician from the Beauty Emporium, and I could tell she was close to crying. I wasn't exactly eavesdropping, but before I got all the way out the door and past the porch window, I heard her say something about being afraid she was barren. I knew that meant she couldn't have a baby and wondered why she thought Miss Sadie would have anything to say about that. But maybe she just wanted someone to listen to her troubles. Miss Sadie said she'd show her how to make tea with special herbs, and the two got quieter. I went on my way after that. I was glad to have the afternoon off, but I was sort of hankering to know. Hankering is like yearning to know what was going to happen with the Manchurian fire thrower. And had Jinx managed to avoid the sheriff? And was it Miss Sadie's tent he ducked into? Had he unburdened himself to her? Had he seen her more than that one time? And was that how she knew about events she wasn't present to witness? I touched the raised face of Lady Liberty on the silver dollar. Miss Sadie was an awful purveyor of the future, but she sure knew how to spin a tale from the past. Ruth Ann and Letty hollered to the window from outside, "Yoo-hoo, Abilene, you up there?" In my free time from Miss Sadie's, I'd helped Hattie Mae at the newspaper office some and helped myself to a few more old editions. But mostly, Letty, Ruth Ann, and I had been spying on people all over town, peeking in windows and eavesdropping on conversations, figuring we'd come upon the rattlers sooner or later. But so far, nobody'd given himself up, and we were all ready for a break from spy hunting. "Come on, lazy bones," called Ruth Ann. "The frogs are waiting." I lumbered my way down the stairs and outside. "Lazy bones," I moaned, my back so sore from digging in Miss Sadie's dry dirt that I could spit, except my mouth's too parched. "Well, we can remedy that." Letty produced a jar of cold water. "Mrs. Dawkins gave me some ice from her cellar. She's got enough down there to last all summer." "You got a frog sack?" Ruth Ann asked, swinging her own burlap sack. Truth was, I'd never been frog hunting. But as I didn't want to seem inexperienced, I said, "I just used my pockets." I'm gonna make it through. "How do you get them to stay put?" Letty asked. "I tie their legs in a knot. How else?" I tried to keep a straight face, but Letty was looking at me so serious I couldn't help grinning. I have no idea where my fear of frogs came from, but it is real. Oh, this is disgusting. She wagged a finger at me. You are a hoot, Abilene Tucker. Let's go. Let's get going. Mama's going to have the frying pan ready to fry up some frog legs for supper. Frog legs, huh? When you were hungry most of the time, you learned to eat what you could get. Still, frog legs sounded a bit exotic even to me. But the three of us set off into the woods on my first frog hunting expedition. We could hear them croaking all around, but finding them seemed to be a different story. Once you spot one, work him into a corner somewhere, Ruth Ann instructed. A corner in the woods? Yeah, there's trees and rocks and trees and logs all over. I crouched low to the ground, listening and watching. Okay, evidently I've come unplugged. So hold please for one moment. Plug it in one place and unplug it from another. Okay, we're going on a tour of my living room, or at least the ceiling of it, so that we can come closer to an extension cord. I've always told you guys, you never know what's going to happen in this last leaders class, no matter where it is. Okay. Okay. I crouched low to the ground, listening and watching, when suddenly a fat green frog hopped in front of me. Oh, there's one. I got one too, Letty yelled. Before I knew it, the three of us had taken off in three different directions. My frog hopped this way and that, always staying just out of reach. I chased him into a clearing where he hopped into a prickly bush. He sat there calm as could be, knowing I couldn't reach in and get him. I thought about waiting him out, but then something caught my eye. He was a gravestone beside an old craggy sycamore tree. Just a simple arched marker, nothing special about it, except it was the only one. Whose could it be out here in the middle of nowhere? I wondered. My curiosity got the best of me, and I moved closer to read the name. But just as I reached the brush, the years of dirt from the marker, I heard a scream. It came from just up the way through the trees. I ran through the bushes toward the sound, my face and arms getting scratched as I went. Then I stopped short. The scream had come from a little house tucked back in the woods. It was a tidy house with a neat stack of firewood piled up against the side. Straight and sturdy stairs led up to a little porch, and I could see red and white gingham curtains in the windows. This was a nice house that probably housed nice people, but right now there was an air of distress all around. Letty and Ruth Ann tumbled into me, out of breath, and similarly scratched. What's happened? We heard a scream. Shh. Billy Clayton came around the corner of the house, his face drawn with worry and fear. He steadied a log upright on a tree stump, and with an axe that looked bigger than he was, he gave it a whack and chopped it in half. He tossed the two pieces into a pile and reached for another log. Letty, Ruth Ann, and I kept hidden among the trees when the door to the house opened. Holy Moses, Ruth Ann whispered in disbelief. Sister Redempta came out of the house and walked over to the well. She still wore her long black dress and rosary beads, but had no veil on her head. Her hair was cropped short, her face red with exertion. She hoisted a bucket from the well, rolled up her sleeves, and splashed water on her face and neck. Then, with her hands in the small of her back, she stretched and let out a deep breath, probably as deep as that well. She closed her eyes. What's she doing? Letty asked. You think she's praying? I asked. Billy stopped chopping and waited for Sister Redempta to open her eyes. When she did, She seemed surprised to see him standing there as if she'd been away for a spell. Billy Clayton, we're going to need some of that wood now. Your mother is resting and your new baby brother is in need of a warm bath. So everything's all right? I mean, Mama, she's going to be all right? Yes, Billy, she had a tough go of it, but she's a strong woman. She must be to keep an ornery boy like you in line. Billy smiled. Yes, sister. Thank you, sister, he said, his voice shaky with relief. Sister Redempta went back inside and Billy gathered up a few wood splits and followed her. Letty, Ruth Ann, and I dropped to the ground in exhaustion, as if we delivered that baby ourselves. Thunderation, Letty whispered. You said it, Ruth Ann agreed. I can't believe it either. A nun delivering a baby, I said, shaking my head. Oh, Sister Redempta does that all the time, Letty said. When a baby's being born upside down or a mother's too small for her baby, Sister Redempta is called in. That's right, Ruth Ann said. Why, she's birthed lots of folks around here for years. My mama says my oldest brother wouldn't be here at all if it wasn't for Sister Redempta. Well, if it's so common, what are you two all thunderation about? We've never seen Sister Redempta without her veil on, Letty said. There have been stories that she has hair the color of a tomato. Others said she had no hair at all. Come on, Ruth Ann said, hoisting herself up. We'd better get home and tell our mamas that we didn't catch any frogs and that Mrs. Clayton could use some tending to. As we began to walk home, I kept my eyes open for the grave markers, still curious about what lonely soul might be buried alone, but we never passed it. So this chapter does a lot of inferring. It doesn't come out and tell you exactly what's happening in this chapter. Instead, it expects that you can take the information that the author does give you and put the pieces together yourself. So she hears someone scream in the woods. They never come right out and say who's screaming. But then later you found out that Sister Redempta was helping to deliver Billy Clayton's baby brother. So I can only assume that his mother was in pain. And that was the scream that they heard. Now, it used to be quite common for sisters to deliver babies in your home. And that was one of their primary jobs. In fact, there's a show that I like that's all about a group of nuns who worked as midwives. And so they did that at home. It also does not tell you why they need, what the wood has to do with your baby brothers in need of a warm bath. But I can only assume that they needed to heat water to give the baby a bath, so the baby wouldn't have a cold bath, which no baby would like. And so they needed that wood. He was chopping wood to A, keep himself busy and not worry about his mom, and B, so that they could warm up water to give his baby brother a bath. So we learn a lot of things. We also have to fill in a lot of the blanks for ourselves in this chapter. So I am going to read the next one in a second video, and then I'll give you instructions from there.